So on the support thing, you mentioned funding issues. Would the council have access to resources, and how do you envision the club getting that money, or the council getting the money?
Well, I think I would prefer the council remain independent of the funding sources that we have because already at the university, because frankly, clubs already take advantage of those usually. Um, I think through advertising and sponsorships, it might be possible to get companies who might not be willing to sponsor an individual club, for example, might say, sure, we'll sponsor the inter-club council to do that. I suspect maybe advertising managers might have a little bit more skill with that than others.
Cool. And what are your next steps? Are you just trying to recruit people in? Are you meeting with the university, trying to get them to recognize your council? What are your steps forward?
Sure. So I guess the 5-year plan or a 3-month plan is that I'm mainly focusing right now on the councils, as I mentioned before, and the clubs at Clubfest. Hopefully they'll look at these and be interested enough to email us. My goal is to have a provisional upper council established by the end of the semester, and then have the grand council established in the spring. And in between that time, obviously, we need to reach out to the Student Activity Center and fund things like that to even get the organization existing. I have already done that, but we have not yet filed paperwork simply because I wanted to make sure we have at least 3 councils on board before we do anything like that.
Okay.
And then further down the line, as you mentioned, maybe get sponsored states and all those fun things.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a fundamentally useful idea. When we encountered problems with trademark, there was a tough time when we had conversations up here was, well, how do we give the university someone to negotiate with? Was kind of like some internal things is that, sure, you might say, your whatever, make one group of people happy, but how are you supposed to know that makes everyone happy? So what, and I think this is a fundamentally useful idea, and I think it could provide value to student government in terms of organizational purpose. Adam, I'm a little worried though, as it sounds like it's kind of your thing. Is that how many other people are involved in creating this? And if you graduate, does this die?
Well, that's another issue that faces a little close. But yeah, I would like to think it's not all me. As I said, we used to have a core of 5 people, but a few of them graduated. I'm hoping through reaching out to other clubs that we'll be able to get more than just the 2.5 of us that are left into the command staff. But ultimately, as you might notice by my little structure, I guess I would technically be on the standing committee, and I have completely nerfed, I think that's the phrase, yes, nerfed my power down to the upper council and the grand council. So
Okay.
I do hope that the structure that I and the rest of us have built will be a little bit more enduring than our leadership.
Okay. And your plan is to get this up and running this year, and so can I ask how many years do you have left at Iowa State? Ideally? Okay. So, and the plan is to get the council up and running before you leave, so that there is a standing committee? Okay. Thank you. I yield.
Senator Ludwig.
Hi. May I address the speaker?
Yes, you may.
Cool. Thanks for coming out. I just wanted to ask real quick, have you, I know you said you've been focusing mostly on councils and clubs so far, but have you reached out to SAC?
Yeah, I've talked to Kevin down there a little bit.
Okay.
He's actually given me a couple of good ideas. I know last semester we also were very keen on having club senators, but I believe Senator Sandy has explained that that might be a bit of a fun little adventure for you guys down your rules committee, but still something I want to commit to the back burner.
Okay, good. I just wanted to check because I just feel like working with SAC would probably be the most productive path just because they would govern a lot of the processes that relate to what you want to do. So, thank you. I yield.
Senator Zastro. Yes, you may.
Hi, thanks for coming out. I really appreciate the work that you're starting to do. I think it's a good idea, and I think it is very promising. I was wondering if you discussed this idea with any level of the administration, and if you have, what did they think about the idea?
We talked a little bit about it when we were talking to the trade
Thank you. I yield.
Senator Klein.
Permission to address the speaker?
Yes, you may.
Will this hurt smaller clubs who might not have the members who can join these lower councils?
That is a concern that I've had, that in the Grand Council of 900 student orgs, that some of the smaller voices might be drowned out. My goal with the Grand Council is to have every single student org represented at some level. As I said, they might not have, the smaller clubs might not be able to attend every lower council meeting, but they should at least be able to attend the one single Grand Council meeting at the start of the semester. And I guess we shall see, honestly.
Righty. Will future clubs, i.e. clubs that don't exist yet, have a method of joining after they're formed?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, our idea for the method of joining is that there are two ways after the council is formed. As a council, they can join en masse, and that's just the upper council. But as individual clubs, you can apply to join the council and you can accept it because it's your club. Good for you. And they are put into the unaffiliated orgs. So they would be included in the Misfits, I guess is kind of the casual name I made for it, council. And once the Misfits council grows to, say, 50 members, then they get split into a new entity.
Okay. And then will clubs that join later be negatively affected by the fact that they joined later?
I would suspect not any more than normally would affect small clubs. So I suspect some of the bigger clubs or the clubs that actually get more involved with the council may unfortunately have some undue greater influence over us than perhaps some of the smaller ones that can't get as much involved. But my hope is that with the Grand Council, everyone does have their say some way or another.
Okay. I yield.
Senator Toinette.
All right. First of all, thank you for coming and speaking to us today. I know how intimidating that can be. If this ICC were to continue, obviously we would want you to have as large of a voice as possible. So given that, you touched a little bit on the ICC senators and the meeting that we had with Senator Stanley last semester. I was wondering if you'd be willing to, I guess, go into a little more depth on what that would look like.
Okay, sure. So my understanding is how the college senators work is that you guys do go back to your individual college councils and, as has been described to me by councils, provide input as guests. But I suspect a similar thing. We're not quite certain how the senators would be elected. I suspect the Grand Council would elect them and then they would sit on the upper council with full voice. An idea that I have also had as far as the distribution of power goes is that student government would be able to sit in on the upper council meetings anytime you want. Any of you guys would be welcome, of course. But also be able to issue resolutions or things like that to the council, and the standing committee would be obliged to obey. The upper council could choose to tactfully ignore it, but only the Grand Council would ultimately be able to say, no thanks, guys.
Okay. So I guess one thing I'm concerned about with that is that if student government and the ICC are on kind of a level playing field when it comes to having a student voice, I'm worried the administration would be kind of confused as to who to approach in regards to student issues. But another question I had was for the lower councils in your organization. Just a general question, would the currently existing councils, like the engineering student council, be, I guess, considered lower councils in your organization?
Short answer, yes. Basically, our idea for the academic councils is because they also serve a very different role than, I guess, the club lower councils that we have envisioned, is to have a separate section that is still part of that council, mind you, that would deal exclusively with clubs. And how exactly their leadership is appointed, who ends up sitting on the upper council, we'd like to leave as much of that up to the lower councils as possible. But
Okay. Awesome. Thank you very much. I yield.
Senator Stanley. Yes, you may.
Hi, Adam. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming to I Love Ames as well. It's great to see you there. Just have a couple questions. So Senator Han Young brought up the idea of supporting clubs through leadership transitions. First of all, what is the process that requesting support would look like? Would clubs request support from you, or would you just identify a club supporting and say, hey, we're going to come help you out?
Well, we would prefer that they request support, but through the rating system, I guess the rough ideas we've had thus far, this isn't really my thing, but clubs would be judged on activity, stability, and interest. The key one there for leadership transitions being stability. And I guess a 1 through 6, A through E level. And, clubs that would be in, say the 5th or 6th tier, we might take more interest in and might directly intervene. I would assume those are the clubs that are in high danger of losing their recognition. A way to handle officer transition specifically is exchange officer program, which is my little baby here. But basically that idea is, from a lot of the clubs that I've noticed, some have a lot of people running for one position, and then there's a lot of good talent going in, but ultimately there can only be one, say, PR chair. And, all those other people who are left over are still competent leaders, it's just that that club doesn't need it. And on the other hand, there are other clubs who cannot find a PR chair for their life. So through an exchange officer program, they would be, presidents and vice presidents would be able to identify emerging leaders within their clubs, send them to the council, and then perhaps the council could distribute them to other clubs, provided they're willing, of course.
Okay, that's an interesting idea. Who would be administering this rating system?
Well, I guess that would be the Ministry of Interior, so the Home Minister would be the one who is responsible for that, one of the people on the standing committee.
Okay, and I assume what that support will look like is a member of the ICC going and sitting on the club's leadership team. Exactly how much power will that member have? I certainly hope it's not, quasi-dictatorial.
Well, that will vary on the structure of the club. I would generally like to keep our exchange officers on a fairly low-level positions, but, when someone cannot find a treasurer, we got to do what we got to do. And they would only stay there for as long as the club has invited them, and ultimately, if the club decides we don't want you anymore, they'd be kicked out.
Okay, and you briefly mentioned a ministry a couple times earlier. That sounds, like almost like an executive branch to me. So have you broken down what ministries are there?
Let's see if I can remember. Let's see. There's the Ministry of the Interior, as I mentioned. That's the committee that would handle the internal issues with the club, like the rating system, officer exchange, things like that. Ministry of the Exterior, which would handle dealing with you guys, I guess, and the administration. The Ministry of Events, which would handle any events that we would specifically run, support any of the clubs and councils as they run events. The Intelligence Ministry, which is responsible for getting our resources together and identifying and acquiring new clubs and ideas. Let's see, Orwellian stuff, we have to have one of those, right? The Design Ministry, I think, is one as well, that might be, actually, I think it's council resources. Yes, that's specific, that's the broad term for it, and the design might just be an office. The Ministry of Finance, because, everyone has to have a treasurer, and I'm blanking on the 7th one right now, but they generally follow those things.
Okay, great, thank you. I hope to have more productive discussions like this in the future.
Hopefully as we get our ideas together.
Do you yield? Senator Alucard.
May I address the speaker?
Yes, you may.
Thank you again for coming out here. I just had a question. I had a couple questions regarding your administration underneath your purpose. You talked about additional funding. What additional funding would you plan on providing outside of the funding offered through student government? And what would your eligibility requirements look like?
Well, again, going back to the rating system, I guess, it will really depend on just how much money we're able to gather on our own. But ultimately, it's kind of like that metaphor, that system that one of the Democratic candidates who has no chance of being elected, $1,000 to everyone a month, except for clubs maybe $100 or $200 a semester, if they meet a tier 3 or higher recognition status.
Okay, and then my other thing is sort of echoing what Senator Tonet was talking about with having concern for multiple voices to the administration. Would you also then be reaching out to GPSS to also have their representation, or are you exclusively looking to having these senators involved?
I'm not familiar with the GPSS. Is that the graduates?
Correct.
Well, I suppose we're always interested in having graduate clubs if they'd be willing to join the council. I'm not very well going to say no to anyone, let me put it that way.
Okay. I yield.
Senator Klass.
Thank you. Oh, may I address this?
Yes, you may.
Thanks. Thanks for coming out again, obviously. You have a lot of ideas. A lot of them have been discussed. Do you have any like supporting documents or paperwork that you could like easily send us so we can like get a more full grasp of what you're presenting instead of just having to rewatch a Facebook Live event?
So that is on our, we have a little bit of a constitution written.
Okay.
I guess we have a Google folder. I can print it out. I honestly have not looked at it since last semester, so I presume some of our ideas haven't made it on there just yet. But if you guys would like, I'll be more than happy to share it with Senator Heasley, I suppose, is our main contact.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. I yield.
Senator Zamanu.
Can I address this?
Yes, you may.
Hey, Adam. Thanks for the presentation. I have a question to you. So each club works differently, right? So suppose like an engineering club works differently and XYG club works differently. Like, how are you going to rate them?
Well, I think with enough flexibility in the rating system, we should be able to have a good grasp of how clubs work. I guess, as an example, the activity part, just generally, with competition clubs, I suspect they'll easily be able to make tier A. But basically, you get different points, I suppose, for the different types of events that you have and the number of meetings you have. For example, a lot of clubs that do not compete nationally, like the chess club, meet every week, whereas clubs like American Meteorology Society, AMS, who might go to national conferences, only meet once a month. And other clubs like Society of Automotive Engineers, for example, have 5 different teams who meet basically every day of the week and compete nationally on multiple occasions. So yeah, I do suspect that SAE will be able to reach tier A a lot easier than the chess club or the American Meteorological Society will. But at the same time, I think we want to make it so that clubs like the chess club can reach that.
So your criteria is based on the meetings then?
That's one of the sides. The activity side, as I recall, yes, you get points for having meetings every week, slightly smaller points for having meetings every 2 weeks, and smaller points for meetings every month. You get a lot of points if you host a national event at Iowa State. You get slightly less points if you go to a national event outside of Iowa State. And then if you host events at Iowa State, so on and so forth, with increasingly smaller points for smaller events.
Do you think like by having a rating system, like you are forcing the clubs to do activities?
Well, I wouldn't say the rating system forced them. I would say that their existence kind of forces them to have activities. But it does offer incentives to those who do run activities like this. Because ultimately, a club that doesn't have at least one meeting a month is not a club that's going to exist for much longer. I guess I should also touch upon activity is only one side of the rating system. There is the interest level, which is how many people actually show up to their meetings, which is often very dynamically different than how many people actually show up to, or how many people are on a Student Orgs roster. For example, the chess club, we have 266 members on our roster. If 266 members showed up to our meetings, we would run out of boards and pizza very quickly. And realistically, when I take attendance, we average around 25. So,
You can go ahead.
and of course, the last one, the stability part is, do they have a functioning constitution? Do they have presidents, advisors, all that stuff? That's a fairly easy one to make if you're in good standing with the Student Activity Center.
So how are you going to track all of these? Like, are you going to go to every club, or who's going to do all of this stuff?
The Ministry of the Interior. Basically, I guess that will be separated into the Office of Club Ratings, which should hopefully, the reason that we want to clamp down on exactly who representatives are and how many people can be representatives is that I suspect we'd be able to get a few of the smaller ones to participate inside of the ministries. And ultimately, exactly how the rating system would work, I suspect a lot of clubs will be self-reporting these things. And if we don't necessarily believe someone, we would send someone from the office of, I just called it, to investigate and see. Kind of like the IRS, I suppose, but hopefully a little bit nicer.
Are you?
Senator Renchi.
Thanks again, and thanks for taking a second question from me. I like how in your mission you have the goal of preventing instability and transitions of power between clubs. How do you prevent there from being instability on the ICC itself then, overseeing all those other clubs transitioning?
I suppose that could be a concern. I suspect that just due to the sheer size of the council, that it might be difficult to fill, right? There's always some ambitious headhunter looking to have a position like a prime minister of the Interclub Council. And hopefully they'd be competent, but I suspect through times of instability, it may be a challenge to run things, as it always is with all student orgs. But again, with our structure of power flowing to the top, I suspect we should be a little bit more stable than, say, Chess Club. Again, to use us as a terrible example.
Senator Fritz.
Thank you so much for, thank you so much for coming. So it seems like with this council, there are quite a few hoops that you would have to jump through as far as like the rating system goes and, having a member on the council. Do you think that this could disproportionately impact smaller clubs who might not have as much time or resources or members to devote a time to a council like this? And would that take away from their own club in the sense that they wouldn't have as much time to work on their own subject matter of their own club?
I suspect it very well could, but at the same time, I think that with the support aspect of the council, that the smaller clubs will probably get a disproportionate amount of support as well as compared to, clubs like Prism or Cardinal Solar Corp, or whatever it is they call themselves these days, that the smaller clubs might not, or might need more,
Okay, thank you. I yield.
Senator Olcott.
May I address the speaker?
Yes, you may.
Thank you again for answering another question for me. So I know you were discussing how you would rank the number of activities held by a club. As a member of a college that doesn't have a lot of clubs that have events open to the entire school, it almost sounds like you wouldn't represent clubs that don't have many events. How do you address that?
That could be difficult. I would say the represent side is fairly independent from the whole administer aspect of that, because all of the clubs would have a seat on the Grand Council regardless of what their tier is. Their tier is more of an external identification system as opposed to an internal meritocracy.
Okay, and then my second question is you also made a comment about interest level. And so I wasn't sure if you were going to be looking at interest level as a sheer number of members or if it was number of participating members, because as you mentioned, there are several small clubs that might have a higher percentage of participating members than a club of 200 and something that only 25 show up. So how would you adjust for something like that?
It can be difficult. I suspect early on we'll probably have to teach all the clubs who don't know how to exploit their roster and email lists. But additionally, there's going to be several different measures of that. So the meeting attendance, of course, is also even more difficult when you consider that the clubs that meet every single day, like say the archery club, maybe 10 people show up to that. and then the clubs that meet every month, like the AMS, maybe 50 members show up to those meetings, and then how do you just 1 point for every member at the meetings? Well, that seems kind of unfair to the archery club, right? So all that will need to be figured out, but in general, we'd like to give one full point for members who actually come to meetings, maybe a quarter point for members on the roster, and maybe even an 1/8 point for those that are on the email list. Because people do end up showing up to those clubs who are just on the roster, not the email list. It's just that they very rarely show up. So we do want to give them credit for reaching out. And for clubs that even have trouble getting, members to come to their meetings, we give them pity points if they do recruitment events like show up at Club Fest or hand out flyers or things like that.
So again, for clubs that aren't open to the entire school, it sounds like that they would be at a negative advantage, even though this council is supposed to be representing any club that's willing to have representation. So how would you accommodate that if they can come to Club Fest and say, yes, we exist, but it wouldn't necessarily be open up to the entire school? And it's not just like my college. I know there's other specific clubs like that.
Oh yeah, I suppose that's true. Ultimately, again, I would like to emphasize that the rating system is not necessarily a way for clubs to influence the council, although it may very well turn into that. I do sincerely.
That sounds like bribery and shady, honestly.
That's true, yeah. But ultimately, yeah, with smaller clubs, it might be a challenge. But again, as I mentioned before, smaller clubs, I think with the rating system, it simply helps us identify those clubs that are vulnerable. So that means they will get more support as opposed to the bigger clubs that don't really need it.
Okay, I yield.
Senator Han Young.
May I just speak
Yes,
again?
you may.
One of the principles that we really like, or one of the values we really have at Iowa State is the ability for clubs to be diverse and to grow. We really appreciate it when when students come to us with new ideas for clubs and start their own organizations. How will the rating system affect club recruitment efforts, especially for new clubs? And do you see any fallout from saying that these clubs may be better run than others, even if it's not necessarily, even if they're not necessarily being punished for that?
Well, I would say the rating system would be a private thing from within the council to share to you guys and to share to the administration. Now, if a club wants to brag and put on their poster, hey, we're an A2A club, that is, there's nothing that we can do to prevent that. But ultimately, at the same time, they do not have to advertise, hey, we're in need of a little help here.
Thank you. I yield.
Senator Stanley.
May I address the speaker?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Thanks for answering another question for me. I was just mulling over what you told me in my last speaking privilege. So jumping right back into the rating system, do clubs face sanctions for not complying with, what the stipulations of the system?
Yes, actually. That's what I was touching a little bit about with the administer side of things. There would be very specific things I have to do to get sanctioned by the council. But yes, those would be negative points that would we just take off your rating, clear off. For example, if you were actively trying to screw over a club, let's say ASCE as a big civil engineering club decided, hey, we like the storage space that the Earthquake Research Institute, another civil engineering club, has, and we want to take that. Well, if they're going to do that, then they're probably going to get a little bit of a sanction from us to affect their rating system and the resources that they have. With the events like Isle of Ames, if a club ends up backing out, then that's something that I suspect you guys wouldn't be happy about. That's not exactly a good way to represent the council to the other aspects of student government. They'd probably get a sanction. As another power distribution thing, the standing committee can only issue a 10-point sanction. And then once the upper council meets, they get to decide whether they want to confirm that sanction or increase it. And ultimately, only the Grand Council can issue a heavy 50-point sanction. So realistically, it's a little bit of a disciplinary system, but it doesn't have that very sharp teeth.
So the sanctions that are levied by the interclub council come in the form of hits to the rating system.
Yes.
So could a club theoretically, by simply not complying with the directives of the council, reduce their rating to a point where they are compelled to accept a representative from the council and on their leadership team to bring them in line?
I suppose it might theoretically happen, but you would have to do some very bad things, and I suspect a club that gets more than a 300-point combined sanction from the council will not be in existence at the university much longer.
And why do you say that? Are you saying that the ICC will compel the club to dissolve?
No, the other elements within the university. I mean, basically, a 50-point sanction basically means that you made T-shirts with cyan and marijuana leaf on it. And, you know, if you do that 6 times, I think the administration is going to have some serious issues with you existing at Iowa State long before we will.
Okay. And to go back again to one of the questions I asked, this question wasn't the focus of one of the questions I asked, so maybe it might have slipped by you. But how much power exactly will the representatives from the ICC have when they're trying to get a struggling or a non-compliant club back on track?
Well, I suppose that there's the sanctioning power again, but ultimately, if a club denies support of the council, we really can't do anything. They have to want us to help them. And we will always have the resources available to clubs who are failing. And it would be a significant blow to my record, I suppose, if a club that was under the council lost its recognition because they simply didn't want help, but such is life, if we try to help them, it's fine.
So, if I understand right, you're saying that the representatives will have as much power as the club allows them to have?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I yield.
Senator Class.
Can I address?
Yes.
Thanks, cool. So thanks again. Clearly, this is a very elaborate thing. People have a lot of questions. I was wondering, again, to reiterate, if you could send supporting document to Noah, or Senator Heasley, sorry. And also if you could provide times to have, that you would be available for meetings, because I think people have very specific questions that, we're on 50 minutes of this. So I don't know if you also are just if you would rather have stuff in front of you so you could address it and be oh, here, you can look at this part of our Constitution. Just if you could provide those things in meeting times for us, because I think that would be a better use of us asking questions in more of a one-on-one standpoint. Is my wondering if you could do that in suggestion.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
I suspect right now I'd like to focus on trying recruiting clubs, but I'll always try to make time if you wanted to meet with me personally on a one-on-one basis. Also, once we get the upper council set up, maybe in a month or two, you guys are all more than welcome to come to those meetings, and we could discuss about those functions then. Because I suspect the upper council might want to change a few of the ideas that we have, which is their right, since they will be the ones running the show.
Senator Vitt. Yes, you may.
That would mostly be up to the Ministry of Interior. And at any time, if a club feels that they're being disproportionately affected by the rating system, they can talk to their representative on the upper council who can handle it. And if the upper council doesn't do something, then they can theoretically hold a vote within the Grand Council to strike a minister from the standing committee and replace it that way. Well, the standing committee ultimately has the first say, and then after that, the upper council can look at it closer when they meet once a month and decide, hey, maybe that's not such a bad thing, we'll get rid of the sanction, or yeah, that's actually a very bad thing, we'll add it, we'll make it a 20-point sanction. And then ultimately, if that club that gets sanctioned makes enough stink, they could call a grand council meeting and then it could be discussed.
I just want to remind Senate that we are 50 minutes in and we haven't even touched the agenda yet. So if you don't have any repetitive questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, the email is on the list as well. You can always reach out and get more information. Senator Simonu.
This is my last. So I have mixed reactions on this rating system. Do you have any other system, or like, do you have anything going on in your mind other than this rating system?
Honestly, the rating system, and in fact the entire administer section is mostly to ensure that the top level have privileges from the university. So whatever the administration wants to impose upon us as far as administering goes is perfectly fine with us. Obviously, once the Grand Galleries actually vote on it, right? But this is the best idea that I've come up with yet to ensure that clubs have trademarks and keep the university happy.
Okay, I yield.
Further questions for our speaker? Seeing none, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Moving on, we move down to open forum. Open forum is an open discussion for issues relevant to students. If you're wishing to speak, you can approach the lectern.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Dangle. I'm a part of the Pan-Caribbean community where I serve as the treasurer. I don't know how many of you have heard of the recent Hurricane Dorian that hit islands of the Bahamas and other parts of the Caribbean from the period of September 1st to September 4th. I have a few materials there that I'm going to be passing out. I just want to quickly talk to you guys about it. So what I just passed out was a poster, or a smaller poster of a relief item drive that the Pan-Caribbean community will be seeking from students of Iowa State, or would like to request from students of Iowa State that are capable of giving. So the recent hurricane was a Category 5 and effectively damaged the homes of over 70,000 individuals and cost $7 billion for the damages. What we're trying to do is raise some relief items to send back to the people in the islands that are affected by the hurricane. So far, our community has been able to reach out to the Department of Residence, the Department of Residence, which allowed us to use a few of their facilities as drop-off points, such as their mailrooms at Wallace Wilson, MWL, Cornerstone, and Farley, also UDCC. We were also able to reach out to the Agricultural and Biosystems Engineering Department that also allowed us to use Sukup as a drop-off location for relief items. So what we want to do is welcome the university and all students at the university to help raise awareness of the hurricane. We noticed that a lot of the news has dwindled past the hurricane recently, well, as lately of this week. But as the storm moves away from these islands and these places in the Caribbean, what typically happens is that the storms leave long-term damages to these places, and these countries have hard time to recover. So even though the storm lasts for 40 hours or there's 20 feet of storm surge, the damages are generational. Thank you for having me. I look forward to working with any organization or any student body that is willing to assist the PCC in raising awareness of the hurricane and collecting relief items.
Senator Rowling.
May I address the speaker?
Yes, you may.
Thank you so much for coming today and talking about this cause. I'm sure all of us are more than willing to hand out any of these flyers, any more that you may have. I know I've already seen the social media post for this, so you guys are doing a really great thing, and I'd like to address that. If we would like any more of these to help hang them up around the campus, can we contact you in any way?
I'm actually going to email it to whoever I can. I know I sent a few to Vish and to Ian and several others on the console, so I can email whoever is necessary to get it to whoever needs to see it.
Okay, thank you very much. I yield.
Senator. Senator Vic, I'm sorry.
That hurt, Bish. That hurt. May I address the speaker?
Yes, you may.
I was just curious. How are you guys getting these items to the
So
Caribbean?
the Bahamian government has consulates inside Chicago, so members of the Pan-Caribbean community have signed up to drive items over inside a U-Haul or whether it be the vehicle over to the consulate where they will be shipped over to the Bahamas and distributed. That's the best means of getting it there so far.
Okay, that's really awesome that you guys are willing to dedicate time to that.
I would also like to point out the fact that the Pan-Caribbean has also partnered up with University of Iowa, where they're also doing the same thing with their Caribbean Student Association, and there's a few other Caribbean student associations throughout the United States and Canada that will be doing the same thing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I yield.
Further questions? Awesome. Thank you so much, Dangle, for coming out.
Thank you guys for your time.
Moving on, adopting tonight's agenda. Are there any additions or changes to tonight's agenda? Vice Speaker Schrader.
I want to move to add 2019-2-00Y to the bottom of new business.
There's been a motion to add 2019-2-008Y to the bottom of new business, and there's been a second. Are there any objections to adding the bill to the agenda? Seeing none, the bill has been added. There's been a, there's, to withdraw? Vice Speaker Schrader.
I move to add 2019-2-008F to the top of new business.
There's been a motion to add 2019-2-008F to the top of new business, and there's been a second. Are there any objections to adding the bill to tonight's agenda? Seeing none, the bill has been added.
I yield.
There's been a motion to approve tonight's agenda, and there's been a second. Are there any objections in approving tonight's agenda? Seeing none, the agenda has been adopted. Moving down to approval of last week's minutes. Are there any changes or to the last week's minutes? There's been a motion to approve last week's minutes, and there's been a second. Are there any objections in approving the minutes from last Senate meeting? Seeing none, the minutes have been approved. Moving down to committee reports, starting off with rules with Speaker Culbertson.
Okay, hi everyone. I got the submissions for the Rules Committee, so thank you very much for everyone who applied. I will be sending out emails to get interviews started because I had more people apply than positions available, so we'll be doing those next week, and hopefully I'll have a bill up next Wednesday.
Questions? Seeing none, we move down to our Finance Director with Finance Committee with our Finance Director Mueller.
Bills tonight for funding, we have the student activity fee reserve, which I explained last week, but if anybody has any more questions, please feel free to ask. The proxy lock and the office computer are two things for the student government office that we feel we need. The proxy lock for safety reasons and security, the office computer for our admin assistant. And then I'm also introducing the dance marathon line item transfer, which they're just moving money to a different event. I think that's it.
Questions for Finance Director Mueller?
Finance Committee met yesterday, so if you got the minutes, we are officially on a roll.
Seeing none, we move down to SI with Senator Rowling. Senator Rowling.
Hi, everybody. I have a bill coming up tonight seating 7 senators to Student Initiatives Committee, and thanks to everybody who applied. I'm really excited to have a full committee this year, and I'll be putting a bill forward next week to sit all 4 at-larges, and we will have a time to meet weekly on Friday. And with that, I yield.
Questions for Senator Rowling? Seeing none, we move down to PR Committee with Director of Outreach Cherry.
Hi, guys. Okay, so PR Committee, we have our applications in. We will be meeting with all of our people this week, just kind of see if they're a good fit for a pretty casual interview. As for other things, we have a couple more spots for Club Fest if you want to volunteer at our table for Club Fest. I think there's one at 10 to help me set up, and then 2 at 1 to 2. So I think that's all.
Questions? Seeing none, we move down to Diversity and Inclusion with Chief of Staff Kuzel.
Hi, everyone. Elena just wanted to say that, again, committees are getting formed, and she's hoping to have that finalized and then also start meeting next week to get the ball rolling on some projects. She has a lot of cool things getting started and is wanting to bring everyone in on it. So, yeah.
Questions for Chief of Staff Kuzel? Seeing none, we move down to Civic Engagement with Senator Toinette.
Hello, hello. So tonight we have a bill seating some senators to the Civic Engagement Committees, so that'll be very fun. And then this week and next week probably as well, I'll be interviewing some potential at-large members. We got quite a few people to respond, so I'm pretty excited about that. And then as for the mock caucus event I keep hinting at, Vice Speaker Schrader and I actually met with the professor who's organizing the event planning for it, and that was actually a really productive conversation. So we kind of ironed out what student government's role will be in that event. I'm pretty excited for that.
Questions for Senator Toinette? Seeing none, we move down to comments from the executive branch with President Graber.
Hello, everyone. Although it took me 2 emails to get the executive update out, I did it. So as you can see in there, Cabinet met on Monday. We just had a lot of updates. We do have something coming up next Wednesday. The Director of Sustainability, Izzy Wild, discussed that we will be having a sustainability forum from 11 to 12 p.m. on September 25th in the West Student Office Space, hosted by FP&M. Yes, that is the day of the Engineering Career Fair and the Business and Industry Technology Career Fair as well. But it is before the Career Fair, so you still can make it. And that's, again, from 11 to 12 p.m. in the West Student Office Space. Today, from 4 to 5, President Winterstein gave a State of the University address. She talked about topics such as enrollment, new facilities, and the university's fundraising. In addition, President Winterstein also discussed the campus climate response teams that will be forming to address the results from the campus climate survey. Yesterday, I attended the Faculty Senate meeting, and at that meeting, we discussed workday and worksite issues, which was, yeah, there was some stuff there. I was also able to speak at the end of the meeting about student government, and it was great to see that our priorities align with President Sturms, who's the president of Faculty Senate, his priorities as well in terms of diversity and inclusion and access to open education resources as well. Senior Director of Academic Affairs, Sarah Moody, will be attending Faculty Senate meetings from now on. I just subbed in for her last night because she couldn't make it. And then committee applications, as you can see, they're being filled. Just a reminder to all senators, you do have to serve on 1 committee. So we are looking for applicants for the Residency Committee, Outreach Ambassadors Committee, Legislative Ambassadors Committee, and the Student Wellness Committee. They're all in need of people. So if you want to join another committee, reach out to those areas and they will help you out. Another great update, Grammarly. So last year, Senator Amit Mahapatra worked on getting Grammarly free for Iowa State University students. He was successful in his efforts, and you are now able to get Grammarly. I included the link in the executive update, so follow that link, and then you can have it as an add-on to all of your things. If you want to send him an email as well, he's still an Iowa State student, so thank him because that's amazing. And then upcoming events, the Big 12 Student Government Conference is this weekend. Our representatives will be leaving tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. I will not be attending, I apologize again, but yeah. Tomorrow, I have an athletics council meeting to discuss how we can support our student athletes on campus. And on Friday, I will be attending a library advisory committee meeting with Senator Stanley. So if you have any ideas or suggestions for those meetings, please let me know.
Questions for President Graber?
Oh, correction, Campanile Room for the sustainability forums, not the West Student Office Space. I'll make that correction in my report as well.
Questions for President Graber? Seeing none, we move down to external matters. Within external matters, since we don't have any bills, internal matters, special orders 2019-2-6 SG, seating senators to Student Initiatives Committee with Senator Rowling.
So this is a bill seating the 7 senators for Student Initiatives Committee. I'm going to ask them to all come up to the podium, and so you can ask them the questions.
Senator Stanley, you can just go ahead.
All right, I guess I'll start off. Hi, everyone. My name is Sandeep Stanley, but as you know, call me Deep. I'm a junior in aerospace engineering. I was on Student Initiatives last year. It was called University Affairs, UA, rip the old name. But excited to be back. Hope to do a lot of cool things this year again.
Hi everyone, my name is Nicholas Klein. I'm a junior in Biological Systems Engineering. This is my first semester on Senate, but I did serve on the Events Committee for Engineering Student Council last semester. And I am hoping to have almost as much fun with this as I did with that, if not more.
Hello everyone, my name is Ed Bate. I am a sophomore in mechanical engineering and I am a first-time senator. I did serve on IOHA and my Hall Council last year, and I can't wait to start serving my constituents, being a part of this committee. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Tony Tonette. I'm a senior in civil engineering. This is my first time as a senator as well. Last year I was an at-large on this committee, also RIP UA. The reason I wanted to join this committee is, and I think this is the reason a lot of people just join Senate in general, is I really want to improve students' life on campus. And I think holding huge university events is a great way to do that. And so whatever I can do and whatever I can support to help students, I would love to be a part of that.
Hello, my name is Morgan Fritz. I'm a sophomore, first-time senator. I was in Legislative Ambassadors last year, so I've done a bit of committee work with that, I guess. And I guess I just want to join this committee because I want to help students with their goals and whatnot, and any way I can do that. I think this would be a great way, and it's going to be sick, SIC.
Hi, Noah Heasley. My second year as a senator for, well, this time UROC. I was on the committee last year, also UA. Now as the vice chair, so yeehaw.
Questions for our nominee? Speaker Culbertson.
So Dustin was not able to be here tonight, but we spoke with Senator Rowling, and we trusted her judgment as to his ability to serve on the committee. But Senator Rowling, if you would like to speak maybe as to why he was interested or why you think he might be good, would be cool. Hmm? Just for, we think that one is just for if they're coming to ask for funding, so.
Senator Rowling.
So when I spoke to Dustin about being a part of the committee, he was really excited about the opportunity to help with projects. I don't believe he had any specifically in mind, but he was definitely someone who is willing to be of service to other people as they're working. And I think that he'd be a very good member to have to help out in any way that he can, because that's one thing that I've really noticed about him.
Further questions for our nominees? Motions?
Call the question.
There's been a call to question on the bill, and there's been a second. Are there any objections to calling the question? Seeing none, we'll move into a roll call vote. There's been a call for unanimous consent. Are there any objections in approving the nominees by the way of unanimous consent? Seeing none, congratulations. Moving on, 2019-2-7 SG, seating senators to the Civic Engagement Committee with Senator Toinette.
Yeah, so this bill is to seat senators to the Civic Engagement Committee. It's noted in the bylaws that we can have 4 senators, so that's what is on the bill for right now. But before people go up to the lectern, I think Senator Klein wanted to say something. I don't know.
The nominees can approach the lectern individually.
Well, I guess I'd like to make an amendment to the bill if I could. Senator Klein wanted to scratch his name from the bill.
There's been a motion. My speaker straight, do you have something?
Sorry, that was like super awkward. I didn't know how to go about doing that.
So there's been a motion to amend the bill to strike Senator Klein's name from the bill. And there's been a second.
This is so uncomfortable.
We move into, are there any objections first? We move into discussion of the amendment. There's been a call to question on the amendment. And there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we move into a placard vote for the amendment. And there's been a call for unanimous consent on the amendment. Are there any objections in approving the amendment by the way of unanimous consent? Seeing none, the amendment stands approved.
Okay.
Senator Toinette.
Well, that was very uncomfortable. If I could get the other nominees to walk up to the lectern, talk a bit about themselves.
Hi, I'm Hyatt Samuel. I'm a sophomore in criminal justice and political science. The reason why I wanted to join this committee is because I'm already the president of Vote Everywhere, so that's a civically engaged club on campus. And I did a lot of civic engagement last year with Vice Speaker Schrader. So.
Guys, I'm Morgan Mitchell. I'm a double major in political science and finance, and I was an at-large member on this committee last year. I really enjoyed being on the committee and seeing all the things we accomplished, and I think I have more experience to bring this year, and just being a familiar face to all the new members on this committee.
Hi, my name is Taylor Blair. I'm the senator from the College of Design. My pronouns are he, him, his. I have a lot of experience with civic engagement over the past 3 years I've been here, and I think I have insight and stuff to offer the committee. So I'm excited to be a part of it, hopefully.
Senator Heasley.
Are there any projects or ideas that any of you want to talk about, or that you have an idea of going into this committee?
Okay, so yeah, our club made like a whole agenda that was due on the 30th of August. We were planning on working on the mock caucus, and then also for like the 2020 census, we're planning on like having like making it well known to people that you can do it online this upcoming year. We have like mini events for people to go to, like just polling and stuff, so.
I think there's a lot of great things that we can do, like these sort of things. But on top of that, I think we really need to cultivate the responsibility of Iowa State to have civic engagement be a part of its mission. I think that sometimes a school can think it's not their job to do this stuff, and I think that we can make some changes or pressure the administration to make it be, this is their responsibility to help students vote, register to vote, not just something that students can do on the side. That's what I think we should do, more structural change beyond just smaller scale things, which are also super important.
I don't have any specific ideas right now, but I would just love to continue what Jacob did for this committee and then also working with Tony.
I'm gonna add one more thing. Another thing that we did is, so we registered for a voter-friendly campus. If we have the agenda and we go through with the agenda by the year 2021, our campus would be known as voter-friendly.
Senator Stanley.
So, it's an election year, so thank you all for volunteering to serve on this committee because I assume that there's going to be a lot more work. It's very important that students get out and vote during this election, so how do you plan to ensure that turnout is maximized?
I guess just like making sure that their voices are heard on campus, especially like being a UROC senator. Our big like goal is to like get people to know that they have a voice on campus through us, and just like ensuring that their vote will count, and I guess hosting like those little events that make them like know that you care.
One last thing. This is the first year with the fully implemented voter ID law. This is going to be the first real election this fall, so I think it's important that we work really hard this semester to kind of develop the best practices of how to help students navigate that law, so that going to 2020, when we're going to have a lot more turnout than a municipal election, we know what to do and how to make sure students are able to access their right to vote.
Senator Renchi.
Permission to address them?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just for a definition, could you please describe what it means to be a voter-friendly campus?
I guess it's just like the name. So like, I guess if someone like looked it up, like it's like voter friendly, like we are basically maximizing the voter turnout on campus.
Thank you. I yield.
Further questions for our nominees? Vice Speaker Schrader.
For Senators Samuel and Blair. So Senator Samuel, you are president of Vote Everywhere Club on campus, and Senator Blair, you are the campaign manager for a city council election. How would you work to mitigate conflicts of interest?
Yeah, so I am the campaign manager for a city council race, a student who's running for the 4th Ward, which covers campus. Regardless of that, I would be working to help students vote. I will definitely not be pushing a candidate. I think anybody who votes is a plus. So, I mean, and I've already talked to Senator Tonet about this and asked him if it's a problem, and he says that he believes that I can navigate this potential conflict.
Thanks.
Yeah, so for Vote Everywhere, we are a nonpartisan organization. So just forming coalitions with different organizations and like teaming up with them and getting people to vote, I guess.
Great. And then Senator Klein, did you want a chance to explain why you took your name off? I'll ask you a question, so.
So I've been in talks. I've been in talks for a few days with a campaign about working with them, and while I know that I am able to separate my personal beliefs from the duties I would have as a civic engagement committee member, I feel it would be improper for me to do both. While I have not formally worked for this campaign, I'd rather step aside now and give way to somebody who knows they will not have the same conflicts as I would, as well as to avoid any future controversy. I'd like to apologize to Senator Tonet. This kind of just came up, and I've only been deliberating it for the last few days, so I hadn't really had a lot of time to inform him until just earlier today. I would still like to help the committee in any unofficial capacity that I can, and I would like to wish the nominees luck and the committee as a whole luck.
Thank you. A very thoughtful response as well as thoughtful answers from Senator Samuel and Senator Blair. Sounds like Senator Tonet has done his homework and picked some good senators for us. So With that, I'll call to question.
There's been a call to question on the bill as a whole, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we move into a placard vote, and there's been a call for unanimous consent. Are there any objections in waiving the nominees by the way of unanimous consent? Seeing none, congratulations. Moving on to, within general orders, 2019-2-6F, funding student activity fee reserve with Senator Lifford.
So we talked about this last week. We just have to have 6% of our anticipated revenue in our reserve account. That is per the bylaws and just smart financial planning. Any questions?
Questions for Finance Director Mueller? Motions?
Call the question.
There's been a call to question on the bill, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we'll move into a roll call vote. Senator Advet. Senator Alucard. Bender. Blair. Khan. Culbertson. Dollinger. Fritz. Green. Hanyang. Heasley. Klass. Klein. Klein. Lipford. Ludwig. Mass. McMichael. Meredith. Mitchell. Rinchi. Rolling. Samanu. Strader. Searles. Stanley. Samuel. Tonet. Zastro. Bender. 28 to 0 to 0. With a vote of 28 to 0 to 0, this funding bill passes. Next up, we have 2019-2-4F, funding student government office proxy lock with Speaker Culbertson.
Okay, yeah, so as I explained last week, this is kind of our way to try to make the office more secure for the new computer we might have in there, for some of the financial files that are in there now too, but also giving you all easier access. As of right now, one of us has to make sure we're there in the morning to unlock it. It also has to be locked at night. So with this proxy lock, it would always be accessible with your card access. So, yeah.
Questions? Senator Tonet.
Hello, so I just had a quick question about the numbers that were on the bill. Where'd you get these estimates from?
Yeah, so we got them from the actual company. I don't know which company it is exactly, but we got the direct quote from them. So this should be FP&M. Okay, it's a P&M.
Okay.
But we got it from them, so this should be like what the prices would be.
Okay, and I'm guessing they provided the labor quote as well
Yep.
for that? Okay. I yield.
Questions? There's been a call to question on the bill, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we'll move into a roll call vote. Funding bill. Senator Advet. Alucard. Bender. Blair. Khan. Culbertson. Dollinger. Fritz. Green. Hanyang. Heasley. Klass. Klein. Klein. Lipford. Ludwig. Mass. Meredith. Mitchell. Rice. Rinchi. Rolling. Samanu. Schrader. Searles. Stanley. Samuel. Tonet. Zastro. 28 to 0 to 0. With a vote of 28 to 0 to 0, this funding bill passes. Moving on to 2019-2-5F, funding student government office computer with Finance Director Mueller.
Oh, hello. We need a computer for our admin assistant. I was recently informed that ISU surplus is closed for the month of September. So we don't really have another option unless anyone has a brilliant idea for a super cheap computer. But we're probably just going to hold off and get it the first Wednesday of October.
Questions for our Finance Director Mueller?
Call the question.
There's been a call to question on the bill, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Calling the question. Seeing none, we'll move into a roll call vote. Advait. Alcott. Bender. Blair. Khan. Culbertson. Dallinger. Fritz. Green. Hanyang. Heasley. Class. Klein. Klein. Lipford. Ludwig. Mass. Meredith. Mitchell. Rinchi. Rolling. Samanu. Schrader. Searles. Stanley. Samuel. Tonet. Zastro. With a vote of 28 to 0, this funding bill passes. Moving on to new business. First up, we have 2019-2-8F, balancing our budget with Senator Vice Speaker Schrader.
Title. So when COA tried to put money into our account using our big picture funding bill that we passed last session, it was short the exact dollar amount we have funded to legislative relations, meaning that our budget did not balance, and we cannot deposit funds into that account until we balance that budget. So how we can do that is move the money out of special projects into legislative relations.
The numbers, and nobody did that during our Senate meeting. So this year, we're going to make sure we add them up. All of us are going to sit here with our calculators and add up the totals this year. But yeah, we need to do this, or Ledge investors have $0.
With that, I move to waive second read.
There's been a motion to waive second read on the funding bill, and there's been a second. Are there any objections in waiving the second read? Seeing none, the second read has been waived. Vice Speaker Schrader. There's been a call to question on the bill as a whole, and there's been a second. Are there any objections in calling to question? Seeing none, we move into a roll call vote. Advait. Alacart. Bender. Blair. Khan. Culbertson. Dallinger. Fritz. Green. Hanyang. Heasley. Class. Klein. Klein. Lipford. Ludwig. Mass. Michael. Meredith. Mitchell. Rice. Rinchi. Rolling. Samanu. Schrader. Searles. Stanley. Samuel. Tonet. Zastro. With a vote of 28 to 0, this bill passes. Moving on, further in new business, 2019-2-7F, dance marathon lit. Line item transfer. Questions of intent? We'll see this one next week. 2019-2-8Y, 2019-2020 Excellence Fund criteria.
We actually have to waive 2 bylaws in order to present this. So Senator Rinchi.
Pro. Hold on. Senator Rinchi.
I'm going to yield my time to Senator Mass.
Senator Mass.
I move to waive bylaw number 11.7.17.4.
There's been a motion to waive the stated bylaw, and there's been a second. Are there any objections?
Do I have permission?
Do you want to withdraw first? Or do you want, because the senator has objected.
He's objected to the vote, or what part
He's objected to
He's
to waive the
objected to
bylaw.
consideration of the motion?
Yes.
Was that your intent, Senator Stanley?
Okay.
Okay, I will read the bylaw now as part of my debate time. The bylaw is the president shall propose by the second meeting of the second session a specific set of evaluation criteria, not to be amended by the Senate, to be used for allocating money from this account for the remainder of the fiscal year. This is the third meeting of the second session of the Senate, not the second meeting. So we are allowing for this bill to be introduced despite the fact that it is a week late. I call the question.
There's been a call to question on the motion to waive that bylaw, and there's been a second. Are there any objections in calling the question? Seeing none, we'll move into a placard vote. And there's been a call for unanimous consent. Are there any objections in waiving that bylaw by the way of unanimous consent? Seeing none, the bylaw has been waived. Senator Mass.
Mr. President, I move to waive bylaw 11.7.17.4.2. A bill for adopting the valuation criteria shall be introduced by the Vice Chair of Finance Committee immediately upon receipt of the proposed evaluation criteria from the President.
There's been a motion to waive the stated bylaw, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we move into a placard vote. There's been a call for unanimous consent. Are there any objections in waiving the bylaw by the way of unanimous consent? Seeing none, the bylaw has been waived. Senator Lifford.
Yeah, so this is the criteria that I've created for the Excellence Fund account this year. I put Senator Lippard's name on there because he was a nominee for the Vice Chair of Finance Committee, but he hasn't officially been in there yet. That's why we had to waive the bylaws. And I apologize for making the third meeting, not the second meeting, so that's why I had to waive that one. So these are criteria that I have proposed for the upcoming year. Feel free, actually I encourage you to look at the bylaws in terms of the Excellence Fund account, see what it's about, and then come back with suggestions. Again, the bylaws state that that Senate cannot amend it, so please just give me feedback and then I could, yeah, and we can take it in from there.
Questions of intent? Seeing none, we'll see this one next week. Closing announcements. Senator Searles.
You said closing announcements, right?
Yes.
All right. Plug in the Freddie block party this Friday, 6 o'clock. When does it start? I knew that. It's at Freddie. There's going to be food. You're going to have to purchase it if you don't live in Freddie. There's no inflatables. Probably getting a Hawkeye piñata. Excited to see President Graber there. Because I know he's not going to be at the Big 12 conference, so I yield.
Senator Blair.
I meant to speak at the beginning but it moved so fast that I couldn't. I just want to share a quick couple thoughts of something I experienced recently. I'm doing a project where I was in the archives doing research, and I came across a student organization that existed in 1991 called the Heterosexual Alliance, which was a blatantly homophobic organization. It was disbanded because it violated the school's anti-discrimination policies because they forced the members to sign an oath of heterosexuality. This organization said that their homophobia was a charity because it would protect gay men from dying from AIDS. If you remember, my first encounter with Iowa State student government was last year when I came to speak against a resolution passed here in support of a bill in the Iowa legislature that would have allowed discrimination against certain people for leadership positions in student orgs. Under the law that was passed, the Heterosexual Alliance could exist on this campus in 2019 as long as it was only their leadership team who was forced to sign the oath of heterosexuality. That's why I came to speak last spring, and that's why I still think this law is wrong. There's a quote, a very famous quote by Martin Luther King Jr., the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice, and I believe that, but this is a setback. I don't bring this up to be controversial or to open old wounds, but just to remind us all that we are working hard here to make Iowa State a great place, a place that all feel welcome and included, but that things that affect us here, that affect students,
don't just come from Iowa State, they come from all over the place. And that as we dedicate ourselves to making Iowa State more inclusive and welcoming, equitable and just, we should dedicate ourselves to doing the same in Ames, in Iowa, around the country, and globally. So I just wanted to share my thoughts on that real quick. So thank you.
Senator Stanley.
Speaking of Ames, I Love Ames happened this weekend. It was great. It was a huge success. We had a lot of people come. I estimated like 400 or 500 people were there. I'll have to check to see if those numbers are right, but there were a lot of people there. It was a great time. I was very sick, so I did not have a very great time, but a lot of people liked it. I heard nothing but positive things. So we're going to take a well-deserved break, maybe like a month or so, and we're going to start planning for next year up in October. So if you'd like to get on the ground floor for next year, we have very, very, very ambitious plans for expansion that if we start now, we can get done by September of next year. So if you want to get on the ground floor this year, just come talk to me. I'll keep you in the loop as we get rolling. And yeah, thank you.
Is it Senator Turnet?
Well, first off, I'm very excited to hear these ambitious plans for I Love Ames Part 2. I think it's going to be really awesome. Yeah, the reason that, I wanted to talk is tomorrow night at 7 p.m. on ABC is the next round of the Democratic primary debates. We've cut the debate people in half. That sounded brutal. There's only 10 people. Only 10 people that are debating now instead of the previous 20. So that's very interesting, and definitely tune into that. Apparently it's going to be 3 hours, so very action-packed. So look into that.
Senator Alucard.
I'd like to yield my time to Senator Searles.
Senator Searles.
Just a quick note on the I Love Ames. We had our first sustainability committee meeting last night, and we noticed a fat stack of flyers sitting on the West Student Office Space desk. Those are printed with dates on them, meaning they're no longer reusable. Moving forward, just a quick recommendation to maybe look at some more sustainable ways in which we can reuse our paper products. Got that. That's it. I yield.
Senator Mass.
Sure. I just wanted to take the opportunity to highlight a philanthropy that's going on. So Delta Upsilon Fraternity is hosting Delta Scoopsilon tonight. Yep. So they're having banana splits. It closes at 9, so you're going to have to rush out of Senate to get there if you want to go. But they're supporting the Feel Good Foundation, which continues to support 9/11 first responders and their families. So definitely a great cause. Definitely consider going and supporting that cause.
President Graber.
In Senate tonight. Dr. Martino Harmon, the Senior Vice President for Student Affairs, is over there. He will come occasionally to our meetings, so I will make sure to recognize him at every meeting. I forgot during my executive report, but I will remember to do that. He's a great resource. If you ever have any questions or anything, he's amazing, and yeah, use him. Feel free to talk to him after the meeting as well. So,
I just want to say thank you for staying so long, and Senator, what? Oh my God. Dr. Harmon for staying so long, as well as to y'all for asking so many great questions to our speakers. It was really good to see that everyone's getting a hang of it now and trying to get and ask good questions and thoughtful questions. If you have any questions regarding procedures, if you think that I am going too fast, or if you have problems like I'm not getting recognized and things like that, you can always come and talk to me, and I'll make sure to do a better job. And if you have any questions regarding parliamentary procedures, me or Vice Speaker Strader or Speaker Culbertson are a great resource as well. If you have like confusions of how to go about doing certain things, that's always, we are here as a resource for y'all to guide. With that, I'll give to Vice Speaker Strader.
Neat. Sorry. Neat. I thought it was a pretty efficient meeting today. I just want to say that something that we haven't talked about before is that during programs, we asked to have laptops closed. We've never said that before, but it looks like everyone's pretty engaged anyway, so it wasn't really that big of a deal. Please get your office hour in for this week. You just have to spend 1 hour in the West Office doing anything at any time of the week that is not your committee. A really cool opportunity is, so I think the date, you should all be getting emails, I think about this later, but the 18th and 19th, MSNBC is hosting a climate debate similar to what CNN did. But they're having kind of satellite locations in early voting states, and Iowa State was chosen as Iowa's. So in the sunroom, from 10 to 4, you'll be able to watch that, and they will be taking questions from that sunroom and asking the presidential candidates. So this will be hosted by the Department of Political Science. Hopefully they advertise this pretty well as it gets closer. When I heard or talked about it yesterday, it didn't seem like most of the details were set in stone yet, but hopefully when that happens, this will get distributed to many students. But it's an awesome opportunity to be able to ask presidential candidates given our early voting location. Please get 2 mentor-mentee meetings in by the end of this month. Most of you are not on pace to do that, but I believe in you, and I think we can get it done. And I wanted to say that our SciRide interviews for our new transit director wrapped up this morning at 8 o'clock. So we have the interviews done, the public input is done. We will be meeting next Monday to select the new transit director that will set the vision for SciRide going forward. And SciRide recently was awarded based on per capita ridership. We are number 3 in the country for transit systems behind New York City and San Francisco. So I think that is really awesome. And the staff at SciRide do a great job with a razor-thin budget. I'm guessing our $11 million budget is dwarfed by the Metropolitan Transit Agency of New York City, but I think we do a pretty good job. With that, I yield.
Yeah, with that, shout out to our trustees, Trustee Bibaloni and Trustee Schrader. With that, Madam Speaker.
Okay, tonight we had a really great program. I think tonight's meeting was really good. You all asked a lot of meaningful questions that weren't too repetitive or anything like that. So nice job, thank you for that. If you have anyone at all that you want to come talk at a program, let me know, shoot me an email. I'll be reaching out to different departments on campus and stuff like that, but if you know of someone that's doing like a cool initiative or something, please email me because we do want them to come talk to us. And then thank you again for the retreat. It was super duper awesome. I will be working on a survey this weekend while we're driving to Big 12 to send out kind of to get your feedback on it. And I do want honest feedback. If you really thought something at the retreat was not helpful at all or something could have been better, please let me know. I'll be looking for your ideas and stuff like that so that next year's retreat can be even better. And then one of the big things we took away from the retreat is that we're really looking for more like bonding time outside of just like the one-time retreat throughout the year. So we'll be having kind of like another big, I guess, like social event thing. We might be looking at a trip to Center Grove, so that'd be pretty cool. So look out for kind of like polls on like best dates and stuff like that, and I'll send out way more information when that gets closer, but just keep that on your horizons. And then a super big Go Cyclones because we're gonna kick some butt this weekend. And I move to adjourn.
Meeting's adjourned. Do you want to take a picture of this?